Good morning, guys. Happy Friday. I'm really excited about today's guest, Josh Carr from Utah, and he's a CEO of Echo. And he's going to talk to us about hydrogen-based wellness, which is companies at the forefront. And this is something that is new to me, and I'm really happy to have him on and pick his brain and learn more. Josh, welcome.
Oh, welcome, or thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah. Briefly introduce yourself and talk about what you do with Echo.
Certainly. Like you said, Josh Carr, I'm CEO of Echo Water, and I've been CEO since February of 2023 when we relaunched the company. And I have just been a serial entrepreneur. I've done all sorts of things through my career, and I didn't really enjoy the launch phase of the business, going from zero to success. And then I always say, once we bring in the HR department, it's probably time for me to go. But I like that moving fast, breaking things, solving problems, and figuring out puzzles. And that's what intrigues me about business. And so I try to spend as much of my time doing that as I can. And then Echo specifically, I got involved in Echo because I've got a genetic arthritis. And I've been having several years in a row of some pretty severe flare-ups and some issues. And a friend gave me an Echo water bottle, and it worked really well for me. And I'd never heard of it either. And I'm a natural skeptic. So I thought he was full of it because I'm like, water has hydrogen in it anyway. I took chemistry in high school and college. But out of, I don't know, curiosity or maybe politeness or something, I tried it and started drinking it. And it actually made a really significant difference for me. And arthritis is connected tightly to inflammation. And hydrogen is really great at reducing inflammation. And so then I started digging in and found out that this was pretty legit. There's a great study that came out in Nature in 2008 that was kind of like the first big study about it. And since then, there's been over 1,000 studies and tons of research. And so I couldn't believe I'd never heard about it, but it's really well researched and very credible. And so as I got more and more involved, eventually I ended up taking over the company and relaunching it. So that's a short catch up on where we are. And now we're 2 years and a couple months later.
Yeah, that's a fantastic introduction. And so we'll segue into hydrogen water isn't mainstream yet. So what's the biggest misconception that people have about it, and why do you believe it's the next frontier in wellness?
Yeah, it really isn't mainstream. And I tell all of our employees, I'm like, when my mom comes to me and says, "Have you heard of hydrogen water?" Then I'll feel like I've mission accomplished, right? Because it's probably 1 in 1,000 people who've even heard of it at this point. And the biggest misconceptions are things like my water already has hydrogen in it. And people are worried that hydrogen's flammable. So how could flammable hydrogen be good for you? Quickly forgetting that oxygen's also very flammable. That it's just things like that. And I think most of it is that just because it's new, you've never heard of it. And 2008 seems like forever ago, but also in the way medicine works and science and research works, that's brand new. That's cutting edge. And it isn't unusual that you wouldn't have heard of it. But I think those are the big hangups people have.
Huh, interesting. What's the difference between hydrogen water and alkaline water?
That's a really great question, actually, because there was a big alkaline water trend maybe 20 years ago. And alkaline water was the gateway that led researchers to hydrogen. People would come in and they would say how they'd had these health benefits from alkaline water. And when the scientists would isolate for the alkalinity of the water, which is like how you would do a trial, you would isolate what could be causing it. So they'd get water that was alkaline and nothing else. And there would be no health benefits. Little minor things, maybe like reducing stomach acid or whatever, but the alkalinity of the water doesn't make it past your stomach. And so they couldn't figure it out, but people kept saying it. And it turns out that an unintended consequence of using electrolysis to produce alkaline water was that it would generate a small amount of hydrogen gas. And when they isolated for the hydrogen, that's when they found all of these health benefits, and that started flowing in. And so the trend has really moved from alkaline water is the old school, and hydrogen is the new school. And in fact, the biggest benefit you can get is by making it as pure as possible. We don't do any pH change in the water. It's not acidic or alkaline. It's neutral pH and then has extra hydrogen in it. So we try to keep the water as pure as we can and just introduce the hydrogen.
And if someone's hearing about hydrogen water for the first time, what's the simplest way you can explain why it's beneficial?
Yeah, your body has hydrogen demand, right? It normally would create hydrogen in the gut through fermentation and through other means. And it seems that as you age, your ability to create that hydrogen diminishes. We think in large part because of gut health, things we've done to our microbiome, antibiotics, other things we've taken in, the environment. But as you get older, your gut just doesn't work as well as it once did. So your ability to create and absorb that hydrogen diminishes at the same time that your demand for it from the body is increasing.
Yeah, interesting. The other question for the audience and viewers, listeners, is if somebody wanted to test it out, where can they go to try out hydrogen water? Obviously Echo, but where can this product be found?
Yeah, so our product we're just starting to now get into retail. We're in some Shields locations. We're in a lot of smaller retailers, or a lot of natural medicine type doctors are carrying it and offering it. The easiest way to get it is just from our website, echowater.com. If you're curious, we have both. This is the product we just launched this year, is the Echo Flask, and it's a smart hydrogen water bottle. That sells for $300, $299. So that's a little bit of a trick for some people. To your first foray into hydrogen is $300. So we also offer a supplement that you can try and have a hydrogen experience with that. And it's $60 to try that supplement. And it uses a chemical reaction to generate the hydrogen instead of using electrolysis. So that's probably the easiest way for people to try it for the first time.
Interesting. The other question I have for you is, because you've differentiated Echo, because you talk about a noisy wellness market and you talk about the supplement and wellness industry. How do you stay true to building what people actually need as opposed to chasing trends?
Oh, that's a great question. So we're not a trend yet, right? I think we would like to be. We'd like people chasing us. But we've had lots of conversations about this, and it's those kind of things where, are we a wellness company? Are we a water company? Or are we a hydrogen company? And I remember a friend asked me, like, if new research came out and found out that all the old research was wrong, would you still promote hydrogen, or would you do something else? And I was like, oh, if this wasn't backed by the science, I'd go do something else. It's worked for me and the science is there, but if we found out we were wrong, I wouldn't keep doing this. I'd switch. I believe in hydrogen. So we made the decision that we were a hydrogen company, and like our purpose would be to get hydrogen water, or more specifically hydrogen gas, to as many people as possible. And so that's helped us really stay focused when we have opportunities come to chase this or to chase that. It becomes easier to say no to really great opportunities that don't fit, because we have narrowed in on that focus.
And along those lines, what sort of regulatory or bureaucratic challenges has Echo faced going into this new area?
That's a good question. There's not a ton of regulation. Because it's a wellness product, we deal with the normal things like shipments. There's batteries in the bottle. Tariffs have been a challenge. It's been great for us because we spent a tremendous amount of energy and money all through last year. I just had a hunch Trump would win and that it would go this direction. I just felt like that momentum shift was coming. And we moved production from China to the Philippines and set up our own factory there to launch this new bottle. And so I think all of our competitors, people that are like trying to copy us, we used to sell this bottle. Most people have probably seen this one in the market. And there's a lot of companies that have copied this bottle. And there's a lot of Chinese knockoffs of that bottle. It's a great bottle. I still have it on my desk. I still use it. But the tariffs coming out of China, it made me a little bit happy, because I'm like, all those people who copied us and tried to knock us off now are paying a penalty for it. So that's fantastic for me. Other regulatory things, we really don't have much. As we expand into other markets, that's when we're running into it more and more. Japan is easier because they've been a believer in hydrogen water for a long time. And they even have some natural springs around Mount Fuji that produce extra hydrogen in the water, and they go and soak in those for the healing. So they're big believers. But the European market and some others, there's a lot more regulation going into those. That's slow. It's been a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, and I'm gonna ask you about the tariffs in a little bit, but what I gleaned from your comments is that you have very foresight. And what's interesting is you had a bestseller over 20 million worth of single product last year, and you pulled it. And because you said you wanted to build Echo as a hydrogen company, and has gone in the face of big pharma, and you've also done a re-engineered supply chain, dodge the tariff crisis, and expose the noise in the industry altogether. So what is your take for leaders that are listening and doing this? What is that? Why did you see that? What did you see in the hydrogen health space that made you want to bet your company on it?
This is the product that we killed, right? That was our number one seller by far, and it's been very popular. And we had a lot of brand equity with that. If you go searching for Echo, you'll see influencers and YouTubers and all sorts of people with that bottle. And so it was pretty scary. It was definitely like a burn the ships moment. And I remember telling everyone as we were getting ready to launch the flask, which is our new product, and we are going to kill off this one. I remember telling everybody, I'm like, this is one of those transition moments where in 3 years, the story will be told that I was either a genius CEO who had this foresight and this vision, or an idiot that sunk the entire company, and it's the exact same decision set. And we'll see how history bears that out. But I think it was the scary thing to do. It was the hard thing to do, but it was also the right thing to do. And we framed that from what's going to be best for our customers. And so in the end, when we were true to that decision, we're like, the new bottle is a smart bottle. It syncs with your apps. It creates more hydrogen. It's a bigger bottle. It's better technology in every way. And so it was the right thing to do for our customers to just focus on that. But it was definitely very scary. Yeah. It's a big shift. It'd be like Apple no longer selling the iPhone, right? It was a big deal. So I don't know if that answers the question in its entirety, but I think as an entrepreneur, you just have to take some chances. And you don't want to take stupid, uncalculated chances. I think we knew that moving to the Philippines would be a good decision, even if tariffs didn't go the way they went. Controlling our own supply chain was going to be a core competency for us, no matter what happened. And so it was still the right decision, even if trends didn't go the way we wanted them to. But we just got lucky and they did. So how's that?
Yeah, it's really fascinating, and it reminds me of when Netflix decided to go from DVDs to streaming, and
Yeah.
the stock price crashed, or when Facebook decided to get into the metaverse and their stock took a hit. But it's like these moments where if you continue like you do, like Blockbuster, or Kmart, or Kodak, you're gonna end up dead.
And investors are right to be scared in that situation because it's a big risk and it's a big change, right?
Yeah.
But Netflix could see some things that no one else could see. And really you make a bet on the team, right? You get the right people, then you're confident in that team and their decisions. But yeah, it was scary.
Yeah. The other question I have for you is with these, talk about your ideas, because I know, earlier on we were talking about like how the migration, like kind of people are voting with their feet now, like Californians are exiting en masse, New Yorkers are moving into Austin, the state's booming, and it's got its own set of problems. But how are you looking, because your supply chain is in the Philippines, but any thoughts on, like, with Trump, are you going to try and bring manufacturing back on shore or just keep it that way? Talk about that.
That was our first plan, actually. We really wanted to do that. There's some complexity in manufacturing this bottle, but I don't think people realize, if you've never done manufacturing, you don't realize how big and horrible the problem is that Trump is trying to solve. So there's literally no one in the States making the circuit boards. There's nobody making the batteries. We're doing an injection blow mold process that's a little bit complicated, and there was no vendors that we could find that were doing that. There's people doing injection molding at small scale and some blow molding at small scale. But once it gets very technical, all the tooling, all the expertise, all of the resources for that are no longer in the United States. And then we've got some pretty strict environmental regulations that limit the stuff we can do with plastics. And you're near Houston, and I think there's so many oil refineries there. And we forget how many things come from that petrochemical industry. But we make the plastic beads, we ship them over to China, they turn them into products, then they ship them back. And there's some real constraints on making something here. We would absolutely love to make it here. It would go so much faster and so much smoother if we could find local people. That it's hard to get to the Philippines, it's hard to get to China to manage manufacturing. But I agree with that part of what he's doing, because it feels like we've made a big mistake by moving all of that core knowledge and competency outside of the country. And it's going to take years and years to bring it back. But I think it's really important that we do. But there's no option for us to bring it back. Even if we wanted, we wouldn't have the capital to do it. But even if we wanted to bring all those people here and set up the entire production line for the plastics and everything here, it would be extremely difficult at this stage.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs, and if you look at China, they've already exported all their manufacturing to the Philippines and Vietnam, and it's actually, you have to be quite very skilled to do what they do, and we're very behind. We're already behind.
Yeah, and we're doing kind of a hybrid agreement with a Japanese manufacturer, and so they're managing the manufacturing process in their facility. We sublet a space, and they manage that kind of process. And then we've had to bring engineers in from China to the Philippines to do R&D and production. And so it's like that knowledge set in the US has really gone away. We focused on other areas to our detriment, I think. COVID really kind of exposed that, right? When we're like, oh, literally everything we need to survive right now is coming from China. This is a problem.
Yeah. That's a product of the last 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah, I know you had.
I could talk for hours about all sorts of things, but one of my favorite little riffs or hobbies of my brain is thinking through the unintended consequences of decisions. And we do things that sound good. We think we're solving a problem. And this happens in politics all the time, where you set out to do something good and it goes more negative in the end. And that's the globalization. I think people had good intentions and it solved a lot of problems, but it created a lot of others. And I don't think we anticipated the unintended consequences of those actions and how much it would impact us in the future. So now we're finding out.
Yeah. How can people connect with you and check out your product? Sounds really interesting, and learn from you, and just if they were inspired by this podcast.
I don't do very many inspirational things myself. I am so busy that I'm not really building my own brand or doing anything on social media. I rarely post, maybe every once in a while, a picture of my kids or something. But Echo Water we've got a couple websites that would be very interesting for people. Echo Water is where you can see all the products and learn more about us. And then we've got another website called Hydrogen Studies, where we've aggregated all of the research on hydrogen, both from inhaling the gas, bathing in hydrogen-rich water, or drinking it. And you can find all the different health benefits. You could look up any condition you might have to see if hydrogen would help you with it at that website. And that's a great place to start, especially for those natural-born skeptics like myself.
Excellent.
Now, and ChatGPT, I guess, does a good job now too. It's a great shortcut.
Yeah. Oh, one final question is, how are you thinking about AI in all of your operations, your processes, automation, delegation, elimination?
I'm an early adopter of everything. So I'm a real power user with AI. I use it all the time. And I use multiple tools, both ChatGPT and Grok and Google, and we've tested the Microsoft one a little bit. We have a really great AI tool that we use for our customer service team. Handles about 50% of the inbound. And depending on what question set it gets, for the easier things, it gets a higher score than our actual live agents. When people are asking product knowledge questions or how hydrogen works and those sorts of things, unless it's something very specific or complicated, then it knows to kick it over to a person. But that's a great system for us, and it's been a huge cost savings for us. And then my best use and the way that our team is trying to implement AI, I think in the beginning people thought, oh, it's going to write my term paper for me. And I think you'll get the most out of it if you use it like you used to use Google. So any questions you have, it's not going to give you the result. It's not as good at connecting as the human brain is, and it's not good at metaphor and being creative. But when it comes to researching the answers to your questions, on Google, you're going to find people selling things and have to read between the lines. And on the AI models, you can query it the same way you queried Google, but get really great results really quickly. And I think that's where you'll find the most success. And it's also helping, like one of the things would be, I didn't do this, but I probably should have done this. How should I prepare for this podcast? I could put in your information. It would give me the way you talk about normal questions you would ask, things you would be curious about or that your audience would be curious about. And so that's stuff I could find out by watching 20 or 30 episodes and by digesting a whole bunch of information, but it just does that very quickly. And I think that's how you get the most bang for the buck out of those tools. So we're trying to get everyone in our organization to do it, but I think most people want to, just because it's such a huge time saver for them.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks so much for coming on and a really enlightening conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for